G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival. I definitely cannot have these turrets on the side of the tank. There is no way I'm ever going to get this thing into and out of its parking bay without destroying them repeatedly. Oh, I left those on from the screenshot. I should probably turn off those welders. Just noticed that. I'm imagining that what will happen is every single one of the turrets will end up much like the turret did on, I think it was the Tick's turret that got destroyed. Oh, I don't remember the Tick having damage there. Yeah, it was the Tick's turret. When I had the big overhanging gantry for the Goose before the Goose had its parking spot, I drove it underneath. It looked like it should have fitted, but the hitbox of the turret is a lot larger than it visually appears to be, so it's a lot easier to hit than you might expect. And so I think having them on the sides here is just a really bad idea. So let's get rid of them to begin with. And in getting rid of them, we can probably get rid of those as well. I was thinking about it and whether I should move these welders in, since they no longer need to be out there, as the only reason I moved them out there was for these turrets in the first place. But I kind of like the fact that the armor will then have to come all the way over the wheels. And it gives us, I don't know, it just feels like an excessive effort to move them back when we could just leave them as is. I don't see any great problems in having them where they are. I mean, I suppose it might allow me to make the vehicle a little bit skinnier, but it's probably not going to make any significant difference in the end. So I'm actually going to leave them where they are while I do the armor plating around the whole of the tank. And that brings me on to another design thing that I wanted to quickly talk about before I actually get onto it. And that is, if we have a look at most of my other designs, even going here to the bin chicken, I like to leave a lot of the functional parts exposed. You can see that on every single design I've got. Well, that one probably doesn't count, and nor do the chicken hawks really. Let's go to something I've actually put some style into. Over here, we've got all exposed parts. If we look at the, actually, best example, Butterball. Butterball has a lot of armor plating, but you can, and some stone. But you can still see a lot of the internals. And part of the reason I do that is if you look at the difference between armor plating and, say, this thruster, there is a lot more detail on the thruster. There's a lot more detail on batteries, on cargo containers, on all sorts of things that makes it much more interesting to look at. And that's why I tend to leave them exposed like I have here and on every other design. Unfortunately, for a military vehicle, that doesn't really work. You do need to have as much armor plating covering stuff as you can, and particularly covering the functional blocks. So that creates our challenge of how are we going to get the armor looking interesting without having giant flat areas. I'm thinking I'm going to have a few flat areas at the front here where the decoys are, and I'll talk about them after I've gone through the time lapse of me doing the armor. So let's jump ahead to when that's done. Well, maybe not jump ahead. Let's show the time lapse now. So here we go. These are those flat areas I was talking about. Sometimes with areas like that, I will do little embedded or little dugouts like I've done here. Sometimes I'll just add an extra little bit of armor on top. Various ideas like that to try and keep the armor design a little more interesting. With all these turrets, they can provide some degree of detail, but they are pretty repetitive. And obviously, with this all in white, it is at its most boring. I could, with this flat area, make it painted in different colors, and that should create a little more interest. It will also introduce a bunch of these dividing lines as you get on edges of armor plating. But there's a reason I haven't done the addition of things like these little blocks and stuff like that. And that is, if I were to add them here, I'm also going to have to replace them every time they get shot up. They're not going to provide any significant improvement in the armor, yet they will provide a lot of annoyance when I have to repair this thing. This armor up here is close to the maximum range of the welders, so it'll get repaired automatically, but anything beyond it, except for in a few specific spots, like I think I could put something on maybe these blocks and maybe a couple over here, that'll be the only stuff that actually gets replaced. So that's kind of just annoying. And since that's annoying, I'm just going to leave it off. And I'm going to try, when I go through and paint this thing, to get it to have some degree of interest up here at the front. Because I'm reasonably happy with the sides. They're fairly flat, but, you know, it's the side, I think, because it's a relatively short top to bottom vehicle, it won't need too much, and I'm hoping a bit of paint might do the trick here. If not, when I'm painting, I will do more little modifications to the armor design. Unfortunately, this space above the wheels, I can't do a lot with. I could add a little bit of extra depth, basically the opposite way to this curve, something coming down in between each of the wheels, but I don't think it's going to add much in terms of the look of the vehicle, and it may just be something that gets in the way. So I'm feeling like I will just leave this flat on this side and on the other side. Now underneath, I haven't needed to put much armor at all. I've put a bit of a skin above these welders between that kind of fills the gap between them and the outside, and that's so that, since I think pretty much that skin goes straight down. Yeah. So there's one layer and then there's another one. So that's kind of why that's there. In fact, I think that may only be a single layer thick, which might not be ideal, since my idea was that I would be able to, if things got really, really bad, that I might be able to jump out of the cockpit and drill into the ground and create a foxhole. I may need a bit more armor there. No, I think I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it. The welders should provide hopefully enough protection that I could do my escape plan. Plus, I've built this fairly well over the top of the cockpit, and this is going to be the platform for our rotor cannon. Now, I've not built a lot of rotor cannons, but if we remember the crane for the tram, it actually works off a similar principle of a type of design you can use for a rotor cannon, one that you would directly control. So if instead of, let's get down here. I don't remember leaving that there. Have we got the crane or is... Oh no, the tram's up at the other stop. That's annoying. So this crane, it is the basic idea of how you could create a rotor turret. If you put a remote control block and then you put a gyroscope on it, you can actually directly mouse control something that is attached to rotors that are let to freely spin. And that would be a manually controlled rotor turret. However, as we've noted many times before during battles with the drones that have been attacking us, I have terrible aim, and I am not as good at aiming as the AI turrets. So, instead of using my turret, how about we change it up and instead of using my turret, instead of using me to target with the turret and having to also drive, I think a much better idea would be to use Whip's turret slaving script and make the turret controlled from the AI controlled turrets that are all over the tank. The beauty of Whip's script is that it can actually pick which of the available turrets it wants to be slaved to. So I can make it so that it could slave itself to any of the turrets on the tank, which is I think what I will do, since if a few of them get destroyed during the battle, the rotor turret should still remain functional, which is very, very important to me. Now I need to grab a few bits so that we can start building this thing. So for a turret, we're going to need to have something to allow it to spin around and then something to be able to adjust its elevation. We also want to have this so that it is able to spin and rotate without hitting these turrets on the side. So I think what we might do is pop a conveyor frame here, or should I put it down? No, I'll pop it here. Conveyor frame in there, then a junction on top of that. And unfortunately, these all have to be made with big blocks on small grid because there are no advanced rotors for small grid that can actually carry stuff. There are mods that you can use if you want to, so that you can have access to single block rotors that can actually carry materials through them. And that should be fine since ammunition will actually pass through a small conveyor. But since I'm going to continue with my current mod set, I'm going to have to stick with the mostly vanilla version that we've got here. And that should give us a pretty reasonable range. So let's weld this up and then we'll get on to the next bit. You might notice the way I've actually placed these blocks. I deliberately placed them so that we've got our 3 small conveyor ports at the front here. And that's so that we can get our Gatling guns onto it. Now, Gatling guns, if we have a look at the model, only have ports on one side and the other. There are no other ports. So the easiest way for us to connect this to our conveyor system here is to pop a few of these small conveyors like that, and then put 6 guns straight on there like this. That's going to give us a 12 Gatling gun turret. This thing is going to be able to put out a lot of hurt. Yeah, it's a bit flimsy though, since any of these rotors get hit and its function is going to be seriously impaired. But hopefully its damage output will make up for that, in that it can, if everything goes well, destroy the stuff that might destroy it well before the other thing gets its chance. If the decoys work, that should be even more likely. In terms of what actually needs to be attached to these rotors, this is everything. However, I kind of want to add a camera to each of these. You do not need these. These are not a necessary component. This is purely because I kind of like the idea of trying to watch through the camera as the turret gets automatically aimed, because I think that could be fun. So that is literally the only reason I'm doing this. There is no reason to have those cameras. The script will work perfectly without them. And speaking of the script, we now need a programmable block on which to install it. And I think what we might do is grab a little spot here for a couple of programmable blocks. Pop 2 there and a couple on this side. That should be all we need in order to equip the antenna controls and all that sort of stuff that we need for the door and those other scripts that I use. Fortunately, there is plenty of space under here, so that I could add more later if I need it. And if we need any timer blocks, we can pop them in here too, all that sort of stuff. So let's grab our programmable block. Let's rename this. Now, I have not picked a name for this tank yet, so I'm just going to call it Tank for the time being. Tank PB Turret. Let's just call it Rotor Turret script, because that'll be easier for me to remember. Go edit, browse scripts, and whip. So we've got whips turret slaving script. Copy to editor. And from here it's pretty easy. So we need to remember that there's a turret group, we can ignore this slaved group because I'm not going to be using that function. So we'll go check code, okay, and it's all good. We now need to set up the names of these rotors. So if we go rotor, this one is called azimuth. This one is called elevation. And same with this one. Then we need to grab into a group all of these and all of our Gatling guns. We also need our Gatling turrets, which are going to need to have an element added to their name shortly. Oh geez, there are a lot of these. And that element is this designator bit. So we'll be adding that to all of them. So we're going to call this tank turret group. Save. Now let's grab that designator and we'll copy and paste it to each of these. If you're interested in using this script for yourself, I will have the link at the top of the description so that you can go and grab it from the workshop. It's also probably worthwhile checking out most scripts by Whip because there are some very, very cool ones in his workshop. Okay. PB. Let's check that it's all working. All right. Now, in theory, we should just be able to grab any of these. Ah, yes! It is working. Look at that. You can see that the rotor-mounted turret is moving in perfect synchrony with me. Sensibly, the script automatically turns off idle movement of the turrets, which is oddly something I tend to leave on because I tend to forget whether I've turned turrets on and off, and it's a nice visual cue for me that they're actually still on. So I do tend to like having all of my turrets on idle movement on, but I will just have to get used to it in the case of the tank, since it would be very odd to see the rotor turret constantly moving all of the time. Now, let's point this towards the rear and then we'll hop out. And I suspect, if I've understood things right... Oh, no, it's still pointed towards the rear. What we want to do is make it so that this thing, when it goes to its resting position, will go all the way back around and rest at 0. 0 for all three of them. All three of the rotors, that is. The way we can do that is by grabbing each one and in its custom data, type 0, or whichever degrees you want to have it resting at. We can do that for all three and it should put them all back to 0. Now, hopefully, none of them are going to try and go through the turrets down below them to get to that point. No, they haven't. Good. Something I didn't do, and I should have done already, is to give these rotors limits. Since if you look from the side, I reckon if we swung this thing through below, we would probably take out this turret and the guns on here. So it's not really ideal. Don't really want to do that. And so what I would like to do is limit them to go about maybe 5 degrees below horizontal in this direction and probably 5 degrees below at the rear. Not that that way will ever really happen. It'll spin itself around, but we'll do that. So for this one, it will be able to go from 0 to say 5 degrees, but then also all the way back around to 185. And that is number 2. So number 2 is the one that's going in the negative direction. So let's grab that. Let's go rotor. This will make more sense in just a second. So we want its upper limit to be 5 and its lower limit to be minus 185. Then with our other one, we will have our lower limit to be minus 5 and our upper limit to be 185. And I think that should do the trick. Let's grab a designator. Let's control it. Okay. So these aren't going to really cause it to drop below there anyway. But I think it's just better to have that safer than sorry. Oh, I do love this thing. It's going to put out so much hurt. Yeah. So that's our rotor turret. And that is all good to go. Every time I take myself out of control of one of these turrets, it'll now go back to this resting position facing forward. And part of the reason I wanted that was so that if we end up shooting at something above us and then driving all the way back to base, the turret will not be pointing upwards as I try and clear these beams, which it gets uncomfortably close to. I think it'll still make it, but it's uncomfortably close. I don't really want to take that chance. Now, we're pretty limited here with what we can do in terms of an armor skin for this rotor turret. I do want something on it to try and make it have a little bit of style, as it's kind of lacking in that department right now. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to achieve as much as I would like for it, since I don't want to limit its mobility through slapping armor all over it. I think we might use these around here, and then I might do something that sort of matches and creates a small gap for the rotor itself, rather than trying to leave the rotors fully, rather than leaving the rotors fully exposed. Most people know that light armor can take about 1 bullet, so that's 1 less bullet that the rotor has to take. That's the way I see it. Quite clearly with... How many turrets do I actually even have on this thing? I haven't counted since I finished it. 2, 4, 6, 8... 20 turrets and 12 Gatling guns. I'm going to chew through ammo like nobody's business. But I still think that we will have plenty of capacity for ammo with the medium cargo containers that are on board. Since each turret can hold a fair amount of ammunition for an engagement, it's unlikely that I'm going to need to have them drawing from the cargo containers particularly early. How does that look from the front? Oh man, it is not a good looking thing. But it's a turret. It's not supposed to be good looking, it's supposed to be menacing. I'm not sure I've even gotten menacing out of this, but oh well. I don't think there's much else. There's certainly nothing else I can really think of that's going to make this look much better at the moment. Let's go flat, then these. What's that coming in from the enemy base? Stinging adversary and drifting pursuant. This might well be their last run against me, since that's the base I want to take out. And we are very close to finally making that assault. Very, very close. I think this might look better if I don't have it all exactly the same across the whole thing. So let's put kind of an elevated stripe down the middle, which may give us something sensible to paint as well when we get around to painting this thing. But it is my normal approach and my preferred approach to try and make things look good with a single colour, rather than trying to use colour to hide my sins. I like to use colour to really add to a design, since I like working with shape. What we could even do, just for something a little more extravagant, so let's pop that like that. Yeah. I don't think I'm ever going to be happy with this thing. It'll do. It'll be alright, I guess. Well, if I'm going to have a little bit of a spur hanging out the side there, I may as well do one on each of the turret arms as well. It's a little bit reminiscent of the one that's on the goose. I was just thinking about whether I might be tempted, if I make this armor design quite intricate, to put a projector within the subgrid here so that it could project itself, but I suspect if this thing gets badly damaged, the projector's going to, so it's not going to save me any effort on the rebuild. While I'm thinking about it, I have had a couple of suggestions for names for this tank, and while I do agree that it has a lot of functions similar to things like salamanders and axolotls and other such creatures that can regrow their limbs, I kind of struggle to imagine an enemy fearing such fearing a vehicle that's named that way. The idea of someone during battle screaming, "Oh no, it's another salamander," just doesn't seem quite right to me. Let's see what's going on out there. Oh, drifting pursuance here. That'd be why all that ruckus is going on. Is there another one down here? Oh, there's another 2 down there. Jeez. I'll be happy when these stop coming in. As there is another one 6.4 k's out. And... blammo! Oh. Seems like I'm... Oh, seems like they've shot at my... or maybe they landed on it. My decoy over there. Because that armor is definitely damaged. Cool. Well, not much longer for them. They do not have much time left. They should make the most of it. So yeah, not really sold on calling a battle tank the Salamander. I need something that sounds meaner, something that would strike fear into your enemies. Something befitting a tank that has 20 turrets on it and a giant rotor turret that has 12 cannons. Although now that I'm saying that, I am almost tempted to call it the Salamander just for the ridiculousness of hoping that one day I would hear, "Oh no, it's a salamander!" Oh, right. And here is the thing about having to sheath everything in armor. I've had to come up with some odd shapes, but I think it kind of works for the moment. I just don't like this big flat spot at the back. I can't decide what to do to make it look a bit more interesting. I don't really want another spike coming out the back. One and these ones on the side are enough. Although maybe... would it look funny if I put 2 more on there? From there? Yeah, they'll look tacked on from the side here. Maybe... oh, maybe we could just do this. Go like that. Have a little bump. Yeah, that gets rid of the flat spot. Cool. But we still have this big flat spot here. Maybe we could do a couple of things. I'm planning on having an antenna underneath hidden away, but we could also put one up here so that it kind of makes sense, since you probably need to have some degree of exposure, although you don't really need to. Actually, stuff it. I'm going to put an antenna out here because that'll create a bit more interest in the design, and if it gets destroyed, that's fine. We'll have another one internal. What else could we put out here that might be somewhat functional? I think a camera array might be of use. So if we have camera there, yeah, that might work. Should probably also have some other front-facing cameras. I don't think I've got any flat spots though. Could put one there. Oh, no, let's not put a camera there. We still need lights on this thing. I'm still going to need to be able to light up the space. So if we pop a camera there, pop the antenna there, that might break that up enough. And if we've got a camera in there, we could have a reason to do... oh, let's have a look at what's going on again. Since it's not going to be too much longer that we get to see this sort of stuff. Although it does seem to be the same battle outcome each time. Although that one's gone a lot further. I've kind of... oh, I can't see it. Oh, it hit something. That's a lot of sound without a lot of visuals. It's definitely down on the ground now. Oh, I think we're okay. So we need lights. Maybe we could put a little bit of this around it. Was it going to look funny? I'm okay with it. I'm not going to pop the lights on yet because I think painting it before putting the lights on might make my life a little bit easier, as it's often quite difficult to paint underneath the blocks. I should probably get this thing done. Oh no, that's landing somewhere bad. Oh, did that hit the base? I feel like that hit the base. I think we should go check out what's going on up there. Oh, no, no, no. That's not good. I suppose since I'm up here, I may as well get my health back from wanging myself. Oh, no. No! Okay, there's debris right in front of the front door, but there's no damage. Heck yeah. My radar dish is even intact. Oh! What the? It's embedded itself in the stonework. I might leave that there as a decoration. Oh man, that is a lot of drifting pursuance here. I'm really going to have to do some scrapping once I take out this base. Alright. Now what we can do is disconnect ourselves from our landing gear. Grind this whole thing away since we don't need it anymore. And we're going to head outside since I want a bit more... Oh, actually, maybe we should bring the catapult inside for this. As I want to figure out the hitch mechanism. Yeah, maybe I bring the catapult inside. Now, one important thing to remember with the catapult is that it doesn't actually need to behave like a trailer most of the time. It should be able to do most things under its own power. The only reason to have a hitch for towing it is so that I can have a single journey out to each enemy position that we try and attack with it. So that I don't have to go all the way out there, come all the way back and do it again. I want to be able to do it in one go. So if we head along, if I park this somewhere around here-ish, should be able to line up things so that I can figure out the attachment. In fact, let's actually put the brakes on. As you may have noticed, I have yet to do any of the armor design around here, which is where the hitch will be based. Should be able to crouch under that. Yeah, nice. And now we see why I had to get rid of those turrets. I don't think anyone was really in doubt of the need to remove them, but without them, I might be able to do this in 2 goes, which isn't too bad. With them, it would have taken me probably about 20. There we go. Definitely need to set up the wheels properly because they are. The middle ones should probably not be turning, and I should probably change the angles of each so that they're kind of in a bit of a proper arc. But this kind of works. I do love with the rotor turret how this thing now really looks like some form of slightly futuristic tank, because it has a big main gun on it. So for our hitch mechanism, it's going to sit somewhere in here, and I'm going to try and keep it so it's not right out the back. The pistons on here should give us enough turning clearance for everything to work. And I'm now remembering why I added so many programmable blocks, because I'm going to have Whip's subgrid wheel control script on there. This is kind of almost ending up being a Whip script tank. Let's pop a rotor there, and I'm actually going to pop another one here. Yeah. Because what I'd like to do, even though it's only going to be visually this way, so I'd like to... Ooh, hang on a sec. I wonder what happens if I add a head to that rotor while it's all in this position. Nothing. I could... Yeah, I am going to do it. I was going to just do it visually and just have this rotor as a pretend one, but I think I might actually hook something up that connects to both, even though that does increase clang risk. But all we need to do for that is pop a few blocks down here on the ground. 1, 2, 3. Might put a little grabbing spot on top. Then, let's grab our rotor part. One there. One there. With the bin chicken, we should be able to pick it up and drop it into place so that both of those rotors can grab onto it. The risk with doing this is always that once one of the rotors grabs, it does tend to flip around the vehicle that is attached to the landing gear. So we may want to do things a little differently. Okay, let's pop a few armor blocks out here as a temporary thing, and then add a landing gear. Hopefully that's going to be within the camera line of sight. Segment. Oh, let's see what's going on. Nope, that's not the right thing. Ah, no! That's the right camera. Is it trying to escape? Oh, I think it just lost its ability to escape. It was trying to. Down she goes. Oh, and it's hidden. This is all because I want to do double rotors. There we go. Hopefully this contraption is small enough that when the rotor kicks in and grabs it and it flips around, it doesn't cause immense amounts of damage to everything involved. Because I have had that happen before when attempting to do things like this. There we go. I think that's about right. Let's check. Oh yeah, I reckon that's within grabbing range. I should probably not stand here. Let's hop into cockpit and watch from here. If I can get a view. Okay, rotor. Attach. Dang it. That's what I was afraid of. I'm so glad I didn't use the chicken hawk. I mean, the bin chicken. Sorry, chicken hawk. You served me well, and that was a very wasteful way of just doing what I did. Oh dear. That's what you exist to do. Is do the things that are high risk. And I keep going into the wrong bay because I keep thinking it's the ticks. I bet there is a simpler way to do what I just tried to do that I've just not come across before. Okay, with that disaster now done, we can add our extra little hitch attachment, and I think we might do things a little differently to how I've done it in the past. Alrighty, so with our rotors set up this way, what I might do is just grab both of them, set them up to have a, where's our displacement? Displacement of 0 on both. I think should have it at about the right position. Then I want to add a little bit of an extension there and our attachment there. That's it. That should be able to drive up to this one and connect. Okay, I'm pretty much over it. Let's grab our wheels. Man, I've got to set up a lot of groups on this thing. Let's drop our strength to 8. Then, rotor. It'll be that one. Attach. Oh yeah. Now that we're hooked up, let's make sure all of these rotors are off so that they can freely spin. I haven't set up any rotor limits at this stage, but that is something I will need to do to prevent this oversteering in some situations, although it's going to be a lot less of an issue for this than it was for the Goose's trailer, since the catapult is a lot larger and a lot more stable. Well, I presume it is anyway with all these wheels. I've also quickly set up the wheels on the tank a little bit so that we're getting a little bit less steering on some of them. And I've turned the steering off on the middle one, so hopefully that's going to make driving a teensy bit easier. Now, the catapult is still park braked, so let's turn off the park brake on it. Then I want to head outside so that we can just have a bit of a trial run of driving around with this thing. I'm suspecting it's going to be quite difficult and we may need to do some adjustments. And next episode, my intention is to paint and fully set up everything on this. So have all my hotbars set up and go through what I think needs to be set up in order to get something like this maximally functional. And hopefully, if you guys have any things that you think I need to do, I'll be giving those suggestions in the comments so that I can do them next time, rather than my usual trick, which is miss some of those important things, get told about them, and then have to do them yet another episode later. The sort of things that I want to set up are controls for the subgrid wheel control script, which should be running on this one. So let's set it up, browse, whip, subgrid wheel control script. There we go, copy to editor. Okay, and let's name it to tank PB subgrid wheel control script. There we go. Now we're going to need to have that as an on-off because it's actually going to make it more difficult to control the trailer in certain circumstances. Like now, when I'm wanting to turn around, if I'm having all those wheels at the back steer, it's actually going to make it more difficult. So I may even need a steer on-off control for the rear wheels at certain times, things like that. But it's looking pretty good, and I'm excited by the sheer ridiculous number of subgrids I have right now. I have a rotor cannon, I have a catapult, and I have the rotor cannon mounted vehicle attached to the catapult vehicle via pistons and... Oh, why is that rocking side to side? What is going on there? The heck? That's weird. And I have them all attached by a piston mounted trailer hitch. This is seriously the most subgrids I think I've ever put together into one combined vehicle. And it's all working. It's working a bit weirdly, but it is working. I think my problem is the hitch might be a little too high. Or those wheels are embedding themselves in the ground somehow. Hang on. Let's have a look back there. So that certainly seems like we're getting... What is going on? Seems like these wheels are digging into the ground a bit. I wonder if there's a block of armor stuck somewhere from one of the drones that I've shot down. So I can see this piece back here. I don't think it's causing the trouble. Alright, let's just see what happens if we gun it. Turn the subgrid wheel control script on and just go forward. There we go. Oh yeah. Look at that. Oh, that could be a problem. Oh, maybe it won't. Just noticing that the wheels all turn in a way that's sensible based on the distance the subgrid is at. That's really quite cool. Never seen that before. But yes, this thing works. I will probably not realistically be driving this out of the hangar as a combined vehicle. It's probably going to be moved out in separate pieces and then hitched up on the bridge. And same when we go back in, I will detach on the bridge and then take the two pieces inside. The main reason for the connection, and I should probably have a handbrake on off. The main reason for the hitch mechanism is so that I can drive the 15 kilometers I'm going to need to drive in order to get to the enemy base once, so that I can move these together to get there. I don't need to worry about driving there, flying back, collecting my vehicle, driving there, and leaving the vehicle unattended while I'm away. That's really the only reason for the hitch. The rest of the time, when I've got to do fine controls and things like that, I will mostly want these to be piloted separately. And that should be relatively safe in most situations. I think with the hitch, I'm going to need to potentially extend this little bar here out a couple more blocks. like say about to there, as that should push the trailer back a bit further so that these bumper wheels don't actually collide with the catapult. But I am pretty happy with the tank. Needs a paint job and it needs a bit of design around the hitch mechanism, but otherwise it's ready to be hooked up to the base and loaded up with some ammo. Oh yeah. The catapult needs these welders at the back and a bit of design work done around there so that we can hook the connector back up to the conveyor system. And then just the projectors set up for the decoys. And then it is ready to go. Yes, so happy. So very happy. We are very, very close to finally ridding ourselves of the base that is sending all of these drifting pursuants in against us. We'll have peace and quiet for a time. I'll be able to do things like finish the refinery and finish the assembly room. Oh, it's going to be so nice. So there's all that and plenty more to come, and I will see you then. And so will the tank.